Cheers from the Sick Podcast. New York City FC is, well, they're still struggling in Columbus. 15 games now played in Ohio, in Columbus specifically, and still only one win. But escaping with a point, that was pretty big. And now you've got former NYCFC gaffer Ronny Deila and Atlanta United next. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up on Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, kids, welcome back. And there's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks. We do the radio thing for New York City FC and have fortunately been doing that since the first kick back in 2015. We've had the 10th year anniversary or 10th anniversary with those opening two home games. And now, Roberto, coming up the fourth road game in these opening six. And every one of them have been at Miami, at LAFC, at Columbus, and now at Atlanta. So it's, Pascal Janssen has been thrown to the MLS Wolves, the MLS scheduling Wolves a bit, and doing pretty well. 2 wins, a loss, and 2 draws through these first 5. And, we'll see what happens. So we got a lot to talk about, but how you doing?
I'm doing fine. And, hopefully New York City can find a way to get their first win on the road since they beat the Red Bulls last year at what is now called Sports Illustrated Stadium. And for Pascal, that would be his first win as a on the road for himself. So that would be great.
I want to talk about Ronny Deila and Pascal Janssen going at it, but the one thing, and this game offered a number of things to discuss, not the least of which that it was just the third time in club history that New York City had failed to get a shot on goal, which I always find that kind of difficult, like almost accidental. It seemed like you should be able to get something, but we'll get into that. Let's go to the youngest player part. So. What really was an interesting development. Unfortunately, Keaton Parks went down in the 35th minute. And so 17-year-old Johnny Shore, who had started the previous 2 games, comes on for Parks, who, by the way, trained full today, looked pretty good. Now there'll be a determination later as to whether he's going to be in the squad or what role he might play. But it is good news that a foot injury that's been bothering him really since the last game of preseason has it reared its ugly head in this last match in the first half. So you had Johnny Shore, 17 years old, and then you have the debuts of Seymour Reed and Maximo Carrizo. So I just want to run this commentary clip about these 2 young men making their first team debuts. So roll that, Shane, please.
We're going to see the 17-year-old Jamaican who has scored for MLS Next Pro make his professional debut. Seymour Reed will wear the number 99 when he enters, and the youngest player to enter a game for New York City FC will be Maximo Carrizo. He's also getting instructions. They both have the scrimmage vests off, so they will enter this game. You would think Carrizo for Maxi Morales, and then we'll get a chance. Maybe it's under 20 minutes left in regular time to see what Carrizo can add on the attacking side. And ball pops high in the air now, and there's a 17-year-old Johnny Shore who comes back to win it. 0-0, 72nd minute. And now at the fourth official are both Maximo Carrizo and Seymour Reed. So it's going to be Hannes Wolf who comes off. So Maxi Morales will remain in the game. Wolf will come off in favor of Maximo Carrizo. Carrizo wearing the number 29, his senior team debut. Big moment for the young man who has fluctuated between the U.S. youth national teams and also Argentina, but most recently played for the U17s in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying and was the captain of that team, and now he's on the field with another 17-year-old who has 3 goals in his first 2 matches with NYCFC 2, Seymour Reed. He was on the bench against Orlando City a couple of weeks ago, didn't enter, so he's also making his debut. So here we go.
And here we go.
I didn't know you were putting the whole game on. Wow, should have known.
Well, it was a big moment, and I offered that to the club. I don't know if it was utilized at all, but I just think, you know, and we saw Maximo's father today, and it just briefly said, you know, so how did his debut go? How do you feel about it? And he just looked at me and goes, that's a big moment. That is a big moment. So big moment.
But before you go, I just want to say one thing. So I want to add something. I want to add some context. So give kudos to Pascal Janssen for this, okay? Maximo Carrizo had no idea he was coming into the game until like seconds before they told him, get up, you're going in. And he had to, it was like one of those things. And the reason I give him kudos for that, because Maximo Carrizo had no time to think about it. He had no time to stress about it if that's what he was going to do. And all he had to do was now just concentrate on what he had to do. Now, the first thing he did, by the way, was flub a pass. But after that, he was fine.
So did you talk to, I'm just curious, we were up at training today. Did you talk to Pascal about, so Pascal did this purposely? You know this?
I don't know if he did it purposely or not, but I know that that's what he did because I spoke with his dad too. So, and he said that he just told him, you're going in.
You're heaping credit on Pascal. I thought maybe.
Yes, I think that's because I think that to me, that was brilliant. I think that's the best thing you can do with somebody like that.
I agree. I think that was, you know, although it's nice to maybe let somebody warm up before they go on the field. Or are you saying a 17-year-old doesn't need to warm up before they enter the field?
No, I mean, like everybody else, everybody had warmed up. But at that point,
you're right.
He was just like sitting around watching the game. And then all of a sudden they were like, you're up. And he was like, oh, okay. It's like comes running down the sideline. And I mean, he didn't have much time to think about it.
No, you're right.
That's the exact right thing to do.
And we get a chance to see, you know, and anybody that's at the game, you could see players, especially in the second half, are, you know, the bench players or the ones that may go on are pretty constantly getting up and maybe down and up just to keep themselves ready to go. All right, let's hear from Pascal Janssen regarding this. So the question I asked, and I believe you were there as well, Roberto, is the this last quarter of hour, pretty much last quarter of an hour, maybe a little under that, there were 3 17-year-olds on the field because I almost forgot about Johnny Shore when these 2 guys came in. So I asked, you talk about understating it. Here's Pascal Janssen. 3 17-year-olds on the pitch in the latter stages of that game. So how did you evaluate how that went?
Well, we didn't look at the ages. We just looked what the qualities, what qualities these guys bring to the pitch and to the dressing room. If we needed those qualities on the pitch in this game, and that was the case. So looking back and then seeing that we had 3 17-year-olds on the pitch is something that is an outcome of this issue, but not something that we.
And it has to be brought up because it's so unusual,
exactly.
You know.
And we try to keep it as simple as possible because the team needed the guys to come on.
For Reed, and I'm wondering if I've read this correctly, he's on an MLS Next Pro contract, so you can bring him up 4 times, but he can only play twice, I think. So under the exact status of his contract, you could only use him 1 more time this season. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That's correct, yeah. That's the MLS lessons that I've been learning so far as well.
So would that indicate that maybe there'll be conversations, depending on how his progress goes, to signing a senior team contract or first team contract?
Those conversations are ongoing, as always.
Okay.
The one thing that you have to keep in mind is that Alonso wasn't available for this game. And there was only one number 9 in Munsev that was available for this game. Taking consideration that he was also and still is in the Ramadan, so that's an issue that always has to be considered. And we're very fortunate to have that talented kid behind him. So this was the perfect opportunity for him to show himself.
So we learned something there. Well, I can't remember where I read it, and it kind of hit me, Roberto, about Reed. And MLS Next Pro. You get 4 short-term call-ups, so you can come on into the squad 4 times, but you can only play twice. So you've got 1 more there. And you heard Pascal describe how Ramadan with Bakrar, which maybe explains a little bit of his underperformance at Columbus, because I wasn't aware that it was still engaged. I don't know if you were, during this game. And then Martinez was away on international duty, where he had 2 assists and 1 goal in a couple of games for Costa Rica. So he's continuing his goal scoring contributions, this time against Belize. And now he needs to do it against Atlanta, because New York City got no shots on goal. But what did you think of all that?
Well, I don't even know where to start. I love the frankness that Pascal always speaks with. It's now we're learning about him and how he likes to deal, with the media, and he's very open. And I think that it's also a way of being able to send messages to his team. So I like that a lot about him. It's always nice to have frank conversations. The team didn't play well. He understands that. I think he's, when you start weighing, this season, and it's only, the first 5 games so far. Yeah, you're disappointed that you wind up losing 2 points against Miami by allowing a goal in the 10th minute of stoppage time. But at the same time, he's got to feel lucky over the fact that they escaped Columbus with a tie and a point there. Also, something that we didn't even get a chance to discuss with him was the fact that it's the first shutout that the team has had since May of last year. New York City won 15 games, without MLS games. I got to be clear with this. 15 MLS games without a shutout, 0-0 in Chicago last year. I think it was May 29th of last year. The only other shutout was Barraza against, who was it? Querétaro in League's Cup. And so, good for the defense that they were able to neutralize Columbus that way. Columbus had a lot of shots. I think it was 23 shots or something in total?
They had 20. Well, they had 24, 5 on target. Matt Freese was named goalkeeper of the week. You know how much we love Matt Freese, and we share our admiration for what he's brought to the table. There's no way he was the goalkeeper of the week. He didn't have to do anything in that game, really. There was that one, the sharp angle shot by Diego Rossi, which he parried over the bar. That seemed to be a very good save. But everything else was like, as they would say in baseball, since we have opening day. By the way, the Yankees were up 4-1 going into the 8th inning. So at Yankee Stadium, or at NYCFC Stadium, however you want to call it. And
they've ruined the field. They put dirt around.
They did. They took the grass came up, the dirt's on. So the pristine conditions at Yankee Stadium now for soccer probably are going to be questionable from here on out because of the Yankees. But
damn Yankees.
Anyway, I forget what I was talking about. But anyway, what were we talking about? You won't remember either. You're old like me.
Older.
This is what happened. But anyway, so for City to to come away with that single point is pretty important. It was about Matt Freese. Matt Freese being named to the 11 of the week for MLS. It didn't apply, but it's the shutout. Sometimes that's where you look at statistics and you go like, oh, he shut out Columbus in Columbus. I tell you what, you got to give credit to the 10 outfield players in front of them. You could say they chased most of the game, which they did. We're going to play a Pascal clip here in a moment where, and by the way, that first one and then this next one is from the pregame show that I'll air on the English broadcast coming up at 7:15 in Atlanta on Saturday. But it's that group in front of them. They really did it was a courageous defensive job that they did. Seriously.
They played well. I thought that the player of the game for New York City was Birk Risa. I thought that Risa had a really strong, probably the best game he's played in New York. I thought that his defending was very good. I thought that he went into challenges very well. He came out with a ball pretty much every time he went into a challenge. And then I thought his distribution was good, considering that the rest of the distribution for the team and the passing on the team was very, very poor. They only completed 80% of their passes. And, once they got into the final third, it was a lot less than that. I think it was something close to like 65% of their passes. It was a poor passing day for New York City. And, to be able to play that poorly offensively and still get out of Dodge with a point, bless them.
All right. Well, here's Pascal Janssen, the gaffer for New York City FC, who talks about the poor attacking performance and give some reasons why. And it involves a guy that got injured in the first half as well. So here's Pascal.
Come of a game where you don't have the quality, or you don't bring enough quality in possession, which was very strange to see for me going into the 11th game being in charge. I haven't experienced that before. I had one game in Europe, in Holland, that I remember. We also had, I think it was only 2 box entries over the game, and that was also against an opponent who was way better than us that day. But what was lacking in this game back on Saturday in Columbus, a huge part was losing Keaton within the half an hour in our way of playing, but also looking for the moments to go forward and try to get into the box of the opponent was something I didn't see with my team. The front line wasn't protective of the ball. We couldn't move up as a team. So that makes it very hard to get forward, but also the easy loss of possession in this game was way off. And those things combined create a situation that we experienced on Saturday.
Specifically about Parks, his presentation in the midfield. So what are some of the things that you missed in particular? Is it just the simple fact of keeping the ball in a better way?
Yeah, that's one of the aspects. On the other hand, when he left the pitch, unfortunately, we were not able to play through our midfield anymore. So if it's lack of bravery, or maybe a little fear, or just not ready enough to get the balls into midfield, it's always a two-way stream, because they need to be provided from the back four in order to get those balls in midfield. But you also have to be able to show yourself and be very brave to get the ball. If there's too much pressure in midfield, you look for your attackers and you look for another way to support the attacking line and get midfield players on the ball. But none of the things I just described were at a certain level where we could be satisfied with.
Well, it reminded me what Tab Ramos, who we're going to hear from later, said about the U.S. men's national team against Canada and Panama, is that there wasn't enough movement. So it's very clear there, midfielders not coming to get the ball, not being brave, and then the group ahead of them not being aware of when they needed to move more frequently or clearly, and into what spaces, whether they're checking or running in behind. So it's always nice to be able to watch it from above like we were able to, Roberto, and it really became clear as to what the issues were.
Yeah, Julian Fernandez had a poor game. It was rare for him to play that poorly. He seemed to, whenever he did get the ball, dribble into traffic and lose it, not seem to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, there was just so many things that were off. And Agustino Herrera got a chance later on in the game to try to make things a little bit more lively for New York City. But it didn't matter who seemed to be on the field. Once they crossed midfield, everything seemed to fall apart for them. It was one of the poorer offensive performances that we've seen in a long time. Hopefully they get that out of their system. Obviously they get Alonso Martinez back, which is going to be a huge deal. And we'll see how they do against an Atlanta team that really hasn't started very well. And that New York City has had its way with them because they're undefeated in the last 10 times that they've met.
That's incredible. And Atlanta under Ronnie Deila in his first year, 1 win, 2 losses, 2 draws. So only 5 points going into that. It's still early and they're still sorting things out. But with all the money they spent on the attacking side, that's 2 clean sheets against for Atlanta as well. And that's when everybody was there. It wasn't during the international break when Almiron was gone.
Yeah, and then last week they wound up getting a tie in Cincinnati with an own goal by Alvis Powell in the 88th minute. So, they're struggling a little bit as well. Obviously, last week they didn't have a lot of players, and this week the cavalry comes back because, they had a long list of people who are out because of the international window.
That's incredible that, and I know Opta, we both have been shared this. I didn't realize 10 straight with Atlanta without a loss. That's incredible.
Yeah, let me tell you where the last one was. I had it down here. Give me a second.
Now it includes the playoffs. So now 6 of those games have been draws, and then 4 of them obviously have been victories. So about Parks again. So he made Pascal made a strong indication that when Parks went out, it really became difficult for the team to keep the ball. 40% possession. That is well below what Pascal Janssen desires. The problem with his foot, it's pretty interesting, Roberto. At the Coachella Invitational, I was at New York, did the broadcast for New York City's last game, the stream out there. And then I went and just kind of by the exit where they were leaving, they were getting on the bus and going home that night. And so I asked Parks, I said, what's going on? And he just said, my foot's been hurting. And that's I didn't say anything because I thought, all right, well, just keep working on it. But now Pascal's made it a little bit more public that, it's something that he's been dealing with and that the training staff has been dealing with. So hopefully that.
I want to answer your question, by the way. When was the last time New York City lost to Atlanta? You'd have to go back to 2019, August 11th, 2-1. They lost that game. Ever scored for New York City after Joseph Martinez had scored in the 42nd and 63rd minute. So that's the last time that Atlanta won, and it was at Atlanta.
That was at Marseille. I do remember old Joseph Martinez, man. That was fun watching him play for Atlanta. But I guess this Latte Lath is a pretty good player, too. He scored a hell of a goal last week, man. He's a good one. Tavon Gray, there's questions about Gray. He played for New York City FC 2 in their last match, started the game. I think he just played a half. And he's going to play with them again this weekend. And again, there's discussion about a preseason injury, and Pascal pretty much intimated that maybe they tried to put him back into play a little bit too early because he went down early at LAFC, hasn't been back since. And the way Pascal said it today is that he will stay with the 2 team until they feel he's 100% fit to come back and play. So we don't know how much longer that'll be, but we do know that Tavon Gray will be playing for the 2 team this weekend. Huh?
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't see him in practice today, so I think he was practicing with the 2 team as well.
He was, and what was even more interesting than that possibly is that Max Murray, Molinari, a lot of the youngsters were in training today. And
the only one missing was Zidane Yanez, who is with the youth Chilean national team.
Okay, awesome. Ronnie Dyler. So what do you think about this reunion with Ronnie Dyler?
I think it's awesome. I mean, MLS should make a big deal about this. I mean, New York City won their only championship with Ronnie Dyler, and I mean, I can't say it was his last act, right? Because he was the coach for the next half season. But he was, what do you call it? I still remember him stripping in the cold after all the rain had gone in Portland.
Well, that's because
down to his civvies.
It's the only question the supporters wanted answered after he was hired is, if you win it all, will you take your clothes off? I mean, I think that when he did one of those supporters, get-togethers at the local pub or something, and look, Ronnie, to me, here's a couple of things about Ronnie. First, I know we both are fond of him. He was always very nice to us. But the fact that he went to the pub in Manhattan, Jack, oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting it. It's the New York City Supporters Club, but it's also a Celtic supporters. So he went and watched the old firm, Celtics Rangers, on like a Saturday morning, and was drinking beers with supporters, which I thought was
pretty awesome.
Which was fun. And he wore his Celtic. The players presented him with a jersey where they all signed it when he left Celtic to come to New York City. Well, he was at Vålerenga after that in Norway, and then came to New York City. But anyway, he wore the top. He was at the bar having pints with the supporters, watching.
I love that.
Term. And then the other thing in Nashville. So Ronnie, I learned that Ronnie's favorite song is Whiskey Lullaby, and I can't remember the country artist that has made it the most popular, but it's a cool country song, and he went down that Broadway, Roberto, and just stopped at every spot and requested Whiskey Lullaby. So I don't know how often I don't know how many spots he actually stopped at.
If it's on Broadway, it's quite a few.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Probably took them all day.
There's a bunch down there. Atlanta United, though, 24th overall in the league standings with those 5 points, 12th in the Eastern Conference. And this guy, Tristan Mayumba, I think he's a pretty integral midfielder. He's going to be out 3 weeks. He got injured in their last game, this 2-2 draw with Cincinnati. So that's, we know Almiron is back, but Almiron played 90 minutes and 45 minutes for Paraguay. So, I guess we don't really know how fit he'll be to start the game, but
it's a long flight back, and then he's playing on turf. So if he starts, I'd be surprised if he went 90. The one question I didn't get a chance to ask Pascal today is, speaking of guys who are making long flights and, actually playing a lot, is Maxi Morales, and the fact that Maxi at 38 continues to play, pretty much 80 minutes and above. He played the whole game in Columbus. Thankfully, he's got a whole week to rest, and they've got a whole week to be able to manage his fitness and everything else. But, as a 68-year-old, I shouldn't comment about a 38-year-old, but 38-year-old in terms of soccer is, is a little bit aged.
They should have,
I
should have a
wonder
rocking
how,
chair.
they can.
How some people get presented like a rocking chair, when they get to a certain age in certain sport, they should have a rocker, on the sideline of the training facility, just so Maxi.
Are you talking about for me when I get there on Thursdays?
No, I'm talking about Maxi Morales. No, I'm sure we would assume that they have every analytic and data aspect of Maxi Morales at 38, and I will say the one thing about being shorter, that you expend less energy, like when you're trying to move around and stuff. That's my experience. You have less things that you can pull. It's just you're not as stretched out. So you can
But remember, Maxi got hurt when he came back from Argentina. He played 4 games and he got hurt, and then he was out for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So he's not infallible to these things.
No.
He's in fantastic shape, and I know they're doing everything possible to make sure to optimize and not to put him at risk. And it helps that they don't have games, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. But at the same time, now Maximo Carrizo finally made his debut, but but they got to figure out hopefully a way to protect him a little bit, because it's going to be a long season, and then you have Leagues Cup and you have U.S. Open Cup and things like that. So it's a long season, and he's at this point pretty much only number 10, except for Maximo.
Not pretty much, unless you include Carrizo, who went in as a winger, as Maxi stayed on the field. There's one number 10 right now that they can possibly rely on, unless Carrizo, you can shift. You can put Pereira there but Pereira is still out, by the way, with the hernia thing. But you could put Hannes Wolf in there. You could put Johnny Short. You do not have another number 10 in the program other than Carrizo, who had experience playing there. So that's all coming up. And I made an error. Carrizo took 2 steps onto the field first. So he was the youngest for those 2 steps to ever play for New York City. It turns out that Seymour Reed just recently had a birthday. Carrizo's was February 28th. Reed was March the 4th. So Reed is the official youngest player ever to hit the turf. And they both beat the record of James Sands by many days.
Yes. And so Carrizo was it, but for about 2 seconds. And then
all right,
Reed followed him on the field.
So
Reed did okay, by the way.
Wasn't completely wrong.
Reed did okay. I was happy for him.
Yep. All right, Roberto. So we've got the live commentary. We both start at 7:15 with our pregame shows on Saturday. We'll be in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz. We have a pretty good view of the game. It's in the corner, but it's high, and it's really and then of course Atlanta's 40 or 50,000 strong coming to the game, so it'll also be loud. The first coaching casualty, Roberto, and this is where I introduce my DH of the year with only a few weeks into it. And the guy who got sacked, Laurent Courtois, is not the DH of the year. The guy who owns the team, Joey Saputo of CF Montreal, is the DH of the year. And so Courtois is the 7th coach since 2018. That's all you need to know.
Oh, no, there's one more thing you need to know.
What's that?
One more thing that you got to add to that.
What's that?
They haven't had a designated player since 2014.
Well, it's in my notes right here.
Oh,
so
good, but you said it's the only thing, so I don't know if that's in your notes. I'm not privy to
I'm
your
saying
notes.
the only thing you need to hear to understand that Joey Saputo's got some sort of issue. But add that, Roberto, and so there you go.
By the way, in Mexico, that's Tuesday.
Remy Gard, Wilmer Cabrera, Thierry Henry, Wilfred Nancy, who nearly left a year earlier because he got into a massive argument with the owner, who, unfortunately for people in Montreal, didn't cater to a guy like Nancy and keep him on. Now you see what's going on. Hernan Losada, who probably was never the right choice there. Courtois, and now Donadel, who is not a manager, but now he is. He came in as an assistant in Denver, former Montreal player. And I put it in our group chat. It's like MLS is a single entity ownership, right? Can they step in with a guy that's as crazy as Saputo, that has really, if I were a Montreal supporter, it's demoralizing. How can you not spend money on players? And how can you not? Laurent Courtois is a good coach, man. And we know, it's just, I don't know.
Look, they could have done the same thing in San Jose, who, again, have an owner there who's the same owner as the now Las Vegas Sacramento Athletics of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. And
whose prime interest is really real estate more than his sporting teams, and has never really invested. But then he goes out and hires Bruce Arena. Right. So, you think that things are getting better there.
Yeah.
I don't know what Saputo's going to do. I know that he's a big deal in Montreal. He thinks he's a bigger deal than he actually is, although he is one. And it's his way or the highway.
And the stadium is named after, Saputo Stadium.
Well, he named the stadium after himself, not after him. He named it after
himself. It's a family
stadium.
It's a stadium. Do you remember the former governor of New Jersey, Brendan Byrne? He named the arena in New Jersey Brendan Byrne Arena, and
yes,
he was still governor.
And I used to call it the Brendan Burnout Arena. Yes. Yeah.
Well,
it's
anyway.
Still there. I don't know what they're using it for, but it's still there.
I think they might still have like ice capades or something like that there, but I don't.
Thinking Holiday on Ice, we both had the same thought.
Yeah. Let's see. So somebody that New York City's recently played and beat, Orlando, just thrashed DC United 4-1. I just thought we'd mention that. And this guy, Alex Freeman, who we heard a lot about going into our game, he was okay, but it's Antonio Freeman's son, and he's having a hell of a year. So he had a goal and an assist in the win over DC United. And now it's like, wow, is Mauricio Pochettino maybe, knowing that Sergiño Dest, who knows what his health future is, and
he is playing again. Yeah, he's back playing with PSV.
All right. Well,
but he wasn't anywhere near ready to play. But then again, the way the U.S. played, and we can talk about this later, he probably would have been better than anything the U.S. put out there on the right side,
including Joe Scally, who just who played the opening game against who was it? Panama. I still haven't seen the Panama game. I saw the Canada
game. He started the opening game. He started on the left side, and then on the second, was it the second game he played the right side, or was it the other way around? Now I don't remember. But he played left on one side and right on the other.
No, that kid Fossey came in and played the right side in the second game. MLS, Vancouver 1, Chicago 3. Now, how fun is this? Greg Berhalter versus son Sebastian Berhalter. I thought that was pretty cool. And Daddy wins the game. And
Sebastian lost to Vancouver, who had started out the season in House of Fire, including the fact that in Leagues Cup they tied Monterrey twice, including tying them 2-2 in Monterrey and eliminating Los Regios.
No, it's excellent season for Vancouver. And for Sebastian Berhalter, he has started every game for Vancouver. So that's pretty interesting. And for Chicago, remember when the New York City won their they won 3 straight road games last year. It was the first time since, I think, 2019. Chicago's now won 3 straight on the road for the first time since, come on, throw out a guess, Roberto. First time they've won 3 road games since.
I don't know this, but I'm going to guess, okay?
All right.
2012.
Good guess. 2009.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. No, but it was a good guess. But it was 2009.
It's been a while. They've been terrible for a long, long time.
Now, when you have a bobblehead night, you need to produce. And Hani Mukhtar had 2 assists, and Nashville, after their best start ever in their 5-year history, beat Montreal. And then, of course, we know that Courtois got fired 3-0. Is that a Hani Mukhtar bobblehead?
No, it's a Maxi Morales bobblehead.
Well,
Spider-Man.
And it was just one day after his 30th.
New York City FC won, obviously. There you go.
All right. So Hani Mukhtar, bobblehead night, 2 assists.
Sorry, Maxi.
And a day after his 30th birthday. So I'll leave that alone. 2 teams only unbeaten now in MLS. Miami is 3-0-1, and Columbus, just coming off that tie against New York City FC, at 2-0-3. The top 2 teams in the Shield are Philadelphia and Vancouver, the aforementioned. And the bottom 6 are Houston, the Galaxy, who have failed to win. Houston has failed to win. New England has failed to win. Sporting KC has failed to win. Toronto hasn't won, and CF Montreal have not won. So those 6 teams are the lone winless teams in MLS.
And there's not really a surprise there, is it? Well, maybe LA, but
Houston's a surprise. Yeah, Houston I thought would do better. Galaxy, you're not going to say, but New England, Sporting KC,
well,
Toronto.
I know that they lost Richie Puig, but I mean, they still have Gabriel Peck. And, they got all the other stars, but they did lose Jovic because of MLS rules. So that's terrible.
Well, we talked about Ronnie Dyla, the former New York City head coach, MLS Cup in 21 with New York City. His top assistant was Nick Cushing. Nick Cushing is back coaching women's football at Manchester City, where he coached for 7 years. He's the interim replacement. And they've had this 4-match super series. That's what they're calling it, with Chelsea. And today is actually the second leg of the UCL the Women's Champions League. And Man City was up 2-0 going in. It's at Chelsea. And maybe
that game's over by now.
We should look that up because, I have it in my notes and then I forgot to look it up. So we'll see. And otherwise, Nick Cushing, Man City against Chelsea. They lost in the Leagues Cup final, did Man City. So that was Nick's first game. And then they lost in the league 2-1 earlier.
Oh, I've got bad news for you. Chelsea won 3-0.
So they win on aggregate 3-2.
So Baltimore, Bjorn, and Ramirez scored for Chelsea. So they're eliminated. Barcelona beat Wolfsburg by 6-2. So their aggregate was 10-2.
All right.
So Manchester City lost 3 of the 4.
That's quarterfinal or semi? I can't remember.
This is quarterfinals.
Yeah. All right. There you go. So, that is unfortunate for Man City and Chelsea. Okay. Well, you want to kick it around or what?
Let's go.
Let's go. Well, Roberto,
I have something for you before you start.
All right. What do you got?
I've got a pigeon. This is a Mexican pigeon. So this is going to be my New York City Mexican pigeon. Mi palomita.
Well, you have to start calling them the pigeons like me then.
No, palomitas. That's okay. But there's still Beatles Celestes always. But I figured I had this here and I should show it to you. Isn't it adorable?
You could call a team more than one thing. It is.
Yes,
adorable.
you can.
It is adorable.
Where is this? Okay. My camera work sucks.
No, I see it.
But there you go.
It looks good. And for those who are listening on the podcast, they can't see it. So
no, they can't. I figure everybody's on video these days.
Well, Roberto, I've got some U.S. men's national team stuff queued up, and I don't know how you felt about this Nations League, the semi, and then the third place game, but boy, the reaction, we haven't heard anything like this from supporters since the loss to Trinidad and Tobago, which we heard stuff like this through the whole Berhalter. After the World Cup is wrong, 100% wrong. Nothing like what we've heard. Nothing like what we've heard.
Oh yeah, I'll disagree. Let everybody chime in here on the right. I'll disagree. The whole Berhalter, by the time he left, especially when they lost in Copa America, they were ready to hang him. Are you kidding me? No, it was that bad.
I'm talking about the lead up to the World Cup. People are in disarray. There was plenty of time before the next World Cup. Maybe they were angry with Berhalter and they got up in arms. I'm talking about like culture, getting ready, 22 people at SoFi Stadium for this game. I mean, and then 68,000 for Mexico, Panama. It is really disconcerting. And I couldn't believe how few people attended these games.
I'm not surprised. They've earned it. And I'm not talking about the players as much as I'm talking about U.S. soccer. So between extremely high prices for very mediocre games, all these games being played in the United States, teams that weren't terribly interesting and probably still aren't right now. Yes, you have major talent that the U.S. national team has that they haven't had in the past. I mean, there hasn't been this many players with this many very good teams in the top leagues in the world, but it's not translating to interest within the United States. And part of that was always, ridiculous prices for bad exhibition games. And so that's an issue. But what we can get to talking about,
these aren't bad exhibition games. So you're talking about the lead up then. These are not bad exhibition games. These are like other than the Gold Cup, these are the only competitive games leading into the World Cup. If you're a supporter of the U.S. men's national team, you're flying into these games, man. If you're like where were all the American Outlaws? What's going on with them?
Well, they were the ones that were there, but they're not. I mean, it's not like the supporters. I mean, the difference between Mexico and the United States, as far as interest and as far as support, is absolute night and day. I mean, it's not even comparable. Okay, yeah. The most supported soccer team in the United States is a Mexican national team. Okay, and nothing else is close.
I know, and we've said that a million times. But let's diagnose this a little bit. And I do have some stuff with Tab Ramos. I had him on my Sirius XMFC show, and I appreciate all the stuff you reposted, Roberto. And it got a lot of response because, look, Tab's played. He's a Hall of Famer. He's played and coached. He coached 4 U20 World Cups. He coached with Klinsmann in 2014 at the Senior Team World Cup. And he was completely overlooked for the head job and has been. And now is just, I think, there have been also cries to bring him in with Mauricio because he knows a lot of the players and he's coached them. But it's just, I think it's trying to get to the bottom of why more people won't support the team in a really, really frantic, crazy, why are people not more crazy about Christian Pulisic? Why are people not more crazy about Tim Weah? Why are people not crazy about this team? Crazy to the point where we're a year from the World Cup or a little more, and 22 people are going to a game. I mean, of course, I'm exaggerating.
It was much better in the last 3 Nations Leagues, which the U.S. won, by the way. And, although Mexico had the majority of the support, as they always do in these sort of double headers, but there was more of a U.S. presence, more of a U.S. crowd, and the U.S. beat them. But aside from beating Mexico, they've been sort of meh against everybody else. And it's funny because Mexican fans says the United States only gets up to beat Mexico, and against everybody else, they're like, Panama's now beaten the United States 4 out of the last 5 games.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I don't understand how that. So let's just. I've got a theory. My theory is soccer is never going to reach the level of American football, baseball, or basketball. It ain't happening. And I feel bad for a guy like Tab Ramos. Look, I've been involved with the game since 1981 in a very serious fashion. I know you have been in that same realm of years covering and being involved. So, we've followed it and we're passionate about it and all that. I've never gotten caught up in like, God, it has to, but I'm still troubled by the few people that wanted to go to this. But I feel bad. I feel bad because Tab in this interview said to me that he goes, the most disappointing thing for him is that he's dedicated his life to this game. And he so much wanted 2026 to just be this enormous success, this enormous buildup where people are literally crazy about the team. There's very little craziness right now.
But the marketing by U.S. soccer has been terrible. And part of the fan base, or what could be a really strong potential fan base for the U.S. national team has to be Hispanics as well. And they've done almost nothing to market an Hispanic. They don't have any social media. They have nothing. When I spoke with Sunil Gunati, when he took over U.S. soccer, 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was, a long, long time ago. And I had this exact conversation with him. All of a sudden, there was a Spanish media department. And then when social media became big, U.S. soccer was all in on social media. They were doing press releases in both languages. They were doing all these things, and people were getting involved. And then Cordero came in after Sunil left, and everything went just out, just stopped it cold. So now the only thing you see is una nación, un equipo, una nación on some of the banners. And now, that's how they say, oh, okay, we're pro-Hispanic. And it's not. It doesn't work that way. And they should be doing a lot more. They should be trying to make sure that all these kids that are growing up in Hispanic households can feel wanted by U.S. soccer. And I don't get that feeling that they do that enough. Maybe it's my feeling on this, but I don't get that they're doing this enough. They're not marketing enough. They're not going out enough. They're not going out of their way enough. And I think that they should, because especially now, and this isn't only about, players, because I've said that now what happens when you're recruiting players, it's more like college teams, college football, college basketball, or college hockey, where you got to go and recruit these dual nationals because they have choices, right? And you want to be able to get them. I mean, the Ricardo Pepis of the world, among others. And so you want to be able to do this. Diego Luna as the latest example. And I know that there are a different way of looking at it. Alexi Lalas has said, I don't want to have to go and recruit. I want somebody to feel it from the absolute heart that they want to be here. And I understand that point of view. I don't know if I fully agree with it anymore that way, because I think things have changed. But this is where we are.
All right. So let me play a couple of tab things for you, because I do want your reaction to it. And this is now on the players' side. And the thing that I was away and did not see the first game, and I've only seen the highlights. And then, but I heard all about it through the group text. The lack of effort and intensity, and the desire to win. Like if we don't win this game, we're not feeding you for the next 2 weeks. That kind of desire. Anyway,
sense of urgency.
Tab Ramos. So the first one is going to be intensity, competing to win. Tab Ramos. This is from my chat with him on SiriusXM-FC. If you're a subscriber, you got to go into the app and listen to this. It's 45 minutes of a guy who's been there, done that, and has some pretty strong opinions, and I think pretty accurate. But here's what he had to say about this lack of intensity. It's interesting.
And I think this is where we have to arrive. I think we have to arrive to finally recognize that what's wrong with us is not the players. What's wrong with us is likely the system that the players are growing up in. Because I think we've been saying for years now, including towards the end of when I left U.S. Soccer as youth technical director, complaining about how development academy games were not competitive, how the players were growing up in an environment where the system and playing out of the back and making things look pretty was more important than anything else. And I think at the end of the day, when you talk about sports, and in particular when you talk about professional sports, the only thing that matters is winning. And then after that, you can make it look pretty if you want. You can change the system. You can have different plans for different games, but all under the number one thing, which is winning. And I think that was something that I complained about with the Development Academy, that I felt like any game I went to watch, it seemed like you would watch the two teams walk off the field after the game, and you wouldn't necessarily know who won or lost. You would go through a 90-minute game and not see a player slide tackle someone else. You wouldn't see a hard tackle. You wouldn't see that real competitiveness of teams wanting to win and accepting only to win. And I think, so now we can look back at our players and we can look at our national team, and maybe we're asking for something that's just not there.
That's pretty interesting. And I had some response on social media from people who have sons playing MLS Next. And I'm not saying this is everywhere, and they didn't even identify the exact club, but saying it's very similar in MLS Next. It's just, it's not that do or die, strong tackles. Shane, put up Christopher Rivera's comment, and it has to do with the motivation and effort too. And this is just, someone who's obviously following the team closely. And yeah, the empty stadium, I agree. And lack of motivation and effort. Maybe the empty stadium had something to do with that too. But how about it being almost a DNA thing, Roberto, and we know some of these players, many of these players have gone off the teams where if you don't train like this every day, you're not getting on the pitch on game day on the weekend, but you're back in your United States environment. I just thought it was an interesting outlook, and it's not. And if you have to listen to the whole interview, because he's not saying that the players aren't culpable for some of this. He's just saying this is kind of the way they've been conditioned.
That's why I think one of the reasons that Pochettino brought in Matko Milovic to the games, those friendlies that they played against Costa Rica. Who else did they play? And Venezuela, right? Because he's got that mentality. He's got that desire, that sort of fight. And look, we understand all the crazy stuff that he did while he was playing with Montreal.
That's the greatest. That was the soccer story of the year last year.
It sure was. But I mean, and he's talked about openly about having that mentality and that passion. And I think he's finding it hard seeing, that it's a very workmanlike group, but that nobody is like running, like through a wall and having that Argentinian sort of passion. And he's got to find a way to get that out of him. I mean, that's going to be like probably the most important job. And I'm very interested to see the players that he calls in for Gold Cup and how he uses them, what kind of players, and what the motivation and mentality is for that. Because, I mean, that doesn't matter where you're playing, and it doesn't matter who you are or what the name says on the back. You're going to have to show this now. I think everybody's job is up for grabs right now, and everybody who gets called into camp for Gold Cup is going to be able to show via passion, just like Diego Luna played, just like Diego Luna went and said, "All right, I'm gonna go out there and bust it for the entire time that I'm on the field," and he did, and he was overwhelmingly the best player for the United States in the two games. So there's going to be a lot more of that, and he's made it clear that he's looking to see for that. He's looking for that.
Diego Luna, I would anticipate that he has cemented his place on the World Cup roster based on those performances. Now, there's still more to go. I did ask Tab about Diego Luna. Tab loves him because he reminds him of himself. That's the way Tab Ramos was. And the way Tab said it was, most he goes, you watch the game and everybody, there's the pass, the reception, the preparation, and the pass. So then he said, for Luna, it's the pass comes to him, he prepares, and then no one knows what he's going to do next, including him. And he said, but that bit of deception is what makes him kind of special. But he's also he's a freaking grinder, man.
Yes.
I wasn't as high on him at first as you were. When we first started talking about him, probably 2 years ago, and then not going to the Olympics and the outcry there. But he's got that nasty streak. He's got a streak that and he cares. He showed he cares. And
100%.
That's probably what you're talking about in these two games. He's the guy that showed he really cared.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine over Christian Pulisic, who was subbed out in the second game, and he didn't want to leave the field, right? And he made it very clear that he didn't want to leave the field, and he wound up leaving the field too. He wound up leaving the field anyway. I didn't have a problem with it, and I'll tell you why I didn't have a problem with it. Because he knew that he was playing terribly, and he wanted to fix it. He wanted the chance to make up for the fact that he wasn't playing all that well and he didn't get that many chances. He didn't want to leave the field. I appreciate that as a fan. I hope that Pochettino appreciates that as a coach and doesn't feel slighted by the fact that he made a big deal about leaving and not wanting to leave. I want players that are passionate about it and that are pissed off that they're taken off a game, right? I want that because it shows that they care. And Christian Pulisic may not have played well in these two games. And also, it might be the fact that the system that that the U.S. national team was playing didn't help. The fact that other players couldn't step up when he's being double teamed to make Panama and to make Canada pay for double teaming Christian Pulisic, because then that winds up freeing him up. So all these things played into him not playing very well, and I also understand his frustration of not wanting to leave.
This is not a Pulisic thing. Canada played the U.S. off the park.
Oh, without a doubt. No,
it was
I'm not
crazy.
saying that.
Yeah. And that is so that's the first win on American soil for Canada over the U.S. Since when, Roberto? Here's another one for you. What year did Canada beat the U.S. on American soil prior to the third place game of the Nations League? You're never going to get this. I was shocked. 1957.
I was going up there. That was the year I was born. That's why I don't remember it.
All right, so that's that. Now the Canadian.
So now, if United States converts Canada into the 51st state, do all these records count?
Well, this is, and then, now that's a hell of a team. So let's you combine Canada and the U.S. And now, before we get to Canada, because they're in the middle of a bit of a controversial issue, I want to get one more Tab Ramos clip in, and this is about goalkeeper. So look, we've talked about this. Like, this is a crazy open position. Which, well, here's my chat with Tab about goalkeeper.
Harry, you never worried about the goalkeeper. I can't remember worrying about it until post Tim Howard, I guess. Not worried, but where you're just not sure. And I think we're really uncertain at this point. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, this is the disclaimer that we always have to have, because as much as we want to give ourselves credit for having a great World Cup in 94, having a great Copa America in 95, or having some great results against Brazil and all other, I mean, we've had great goalkeepers who saved us at the right time. That's the truth. And having a great goalkeeper makes a huge difference. Now we're at a difficult moment where it doesn't feel like we have a number one. I can tell you from the 8 years I was with the under-20s that the best goalkeeper I saw was Zach Steffen. Zach Steffen has all the qualities, including good feet, to have been a great goalkeeper. His career, unfortunately, has not gone in the direction that we thought it was going to go. I still think he's young enough to give another 5 or 6 years of his best. And I'm hoping that between now and the World Cup, he can win that position, because I do believe that he can still be a great goalkeeper. So
Tab seems to have it solved if it works in a positive direction for Steffen. And we know he's playing, and we know he's doing well at Colorado. So it will be a keeper that he'll be, if he stays at Colorado, he'll be playing games, right up until the World Cup.
I thought he was going to start the game against Canada, but I heard that he was sick, so that wasn't a possibility. But I would have loved to see him against Canada, and hopefully we get to see him in the Gold Cup.
Yeah,
he's definitely earned it. He played well for the U.S. for Mauricio Pochettino in the games against Venezuela and Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, you just have to. You have to go back, especially in the position of a goalkeeper, but you could also point to Gio Reyna to make these moves. Remember, Steffen went to Man City. How many games did he play at Man City? Maybe a couple of Leagues Cup. I don't even remember. I don't have it in front of me. And then he went on a journey where he just, was not influential. Greg Berhalter didn't take him to Qatar, which we heard in some cases, just things that you hear about, and there's no definitive reason publicly given, but that Berhalter thought he was the second best keeper, but didn't want to bring him because he didn't think Steffen would accept not being number one. Now that's, again, no one in that camp has said that. It's just something
Right.
I've heard.
I heard something similar, basically that he wanted to leave no doubt that Turner was number one, and he didn't want to have an internal battle or any doubt. And so that's why. By the way, for Manchester City, let's see, he played 21 games for Manchester City. And then he went to Middlesbrough.
Yeah, but
then after that and he played 45 games for Middlesbrough, and now he's played 48 for Colorado.
Yeah, but he was at Man City for, he was he was loaned out.
21 games in 2 years. That's not a lot.
And those games, I mean, if you look at the games that he played in, they were not EPL games.
They were mostly cup games, yes.
With rare exception. Okay, that's still not.
But
enough.
I mean, because there was a couple of times where you thought that he might have a shot, and then I think he made there was a couple of really bad goals against, or really bad plays that he made with his feet. There was something that was out there, and it's a while ago, and I wasn't prepared for this. But I remember it somewhere in the back of my head.
I'll prepare you better next time, Roberto. All right, so the Canadian national team.
You don't seem to have that information.
No, I mean, I said I'll prepare you to get the information next time, and I do not have the information. I just have my feelings. Alphonso Davies went down with a knee injury, which is really unfortunate for Canada because of the and club team as well. But there's a bit of a controversy. I don't know what the latest is today, but Davies apparently was injured in the first match against Mexico. Canada lost to Mexico and then beat the U.S. But during the U.S. game, Davies went down in the first half and suffered a torn ACL, and he's out, for ACL distance, however many months that's going to be. And so now the agent for Davies, if I've read this right, Roberto, claims that Canada misused Davies, that they were under the impression he was not going to start the U.S. game. So he didn't say that he would never be used, but that he wasn't going to start. He did start the U.S. game and then and got hurt. So I don't know where that's at, but
it's sort of one of those things where, you think that Marsh spoke with Davies and Davies said, sure, I can go. But, at this point, you got to protect the player from himself, where even though the player says, I'm fine, you should know better than that. And I think that's where that stems from. And because players are always going to say, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm ready to go. They never want to come out. You get that. But sometimes you have to say, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah. Well, I think more will come out about that. And but it's just unfortunate for the player and for Canada, obviously, because he's such an important part of that. All right. As we close, just a couple of things, Roberto. I thought this, having been in the college game so long and now NIL being, front and center in college athletics. McNeese State.
And you missed out on it.
I did. Well, fortunately, I don't have to deal with it as a coach, but I'm happy for the players. I really am.
Yes.
But McNeese State was the darling of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. There weren't a lot of upsets, but McNeese State recorded one of the big ones. They beat number 5 Clemson, and so everybody went crazy. But the person who really got the most publicity from all this was their student manager, a guy named Ora Khan. Shane, did I send you the screenshot? There it is. That is Ora Khan. Those are socks that were made because this guy became he made a video that went viral on social media. The fans love him because he leads the players out of the tunnel for every game carrying a big boombox. And I have no idea who Lud Foe is, but that's the song he plays and with the boombox. And so it's like he's like the good luck charm. But the reason I bring up NIL, he's a student manager, and he's got an NIL deal with Buffalo Wild Wings, Insomnia Cookies.
And they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
This is
hundreds
crazy.
of thousands of dollars. Yes. Spike Lee sat with him in the last game of the NCAAs for McNeese State. He gets a visit from Spike Lee. I did Knicks radio for 20 years, and Spike Lee doesn't know who the hell I am.
Well, Amir
Not
Ora.
that I'm jealous or
Khan.
anything. I mean, I
Amir
just thought
Ora
I'd put
Khan.
that out there.
Remember that name. The final thing, Roberto, and I know we're a little over time here, but since it's in the news, and this, I don't want anything. I don't want a political discussion out of this. But there was something that I think we could talk about. I consider myself more a coach than a journalist. I think you're more journalist because you've been doing it since the 70s, and I coached for 30 years in between all this radio mess. But this signal text thing going on with the Trump
with the
cabinet.
Department of Defense, yes, and
all that. So everybody's heard
Yes.
about that. And that the Goldberg, the journalist for The Atlantic, the editor-in-chief of it, was put erroneously on this group text chat. Okay, so you can go back and read. If you don't know what we're talking about, you can go back and read all about it because it's everywhere and it's really crazy. It's very knucklehead worthy. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Roberto, is I thought it would be interesting to ponder what this guy Goldberg should have done and what you would have done or what I would have done in a similar situation. I'm going to paint a scenario for you because to me, there's three things that could have gone on here. He could have noticed that he was invited into this and saw like, holy crap, I'm at it, and get right out. Okay, that's one area. Two, he could have waited to see that it was maybe something very secretive and something he probably shouldn't be aware of came up and then leave, which is essentially what he did. Or third, don't ever leave and you stay through the whole thing. And if you look at the journalistic playbook, some people believe that that's what he should have done because a journalist's responsibility is to challenge the authorities, no matter where this journalism is, and always. And in this case, maybe it was national security that he could have been saving lives by staying on longer and understanding every aspect of what happened. So. But the scenario I want to paint, and it's so much more minor, but imagine if we were on, all of a sudden Don Garber included us in a group text with MLS, and they were having very internal, private discussions within 3 or 4 of them. What would you do, Roberto? Let's say the discussion was about adding a 31st, who the 31st and 32nd MLS teams were going to be, who they were leaning towards, and then maybe even bad-mouthing a couple of the applicants because, these people are, whatever it would be, however.
Let me change the scenario for you because adding a team isn't that good. Isn't that noteworthy? I would say taking a team that exists and ripping it from its fan base and putting it someplace else. They were going to do with Columbus.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What they did to San Jose.
All right. There's your scenario. So now, do you do 1, 2, or 3 from what I set up? How do you do that? So you're on it and you're sitting there. And I think I know you pretty well, but I don't know what you will say here.
I mean, it would probably be closer to 2. But I also know that by doing that, I'm also, and I would probably do it anyway, but by doing that, I'd be committing work suicide because I'm sure there would be pressure by MLS to tell New York City to find a different announcer. I think that pressure would come down.
Well,
I don't think that they would take it as, it's not the Athletic who they have nothing. It's different because it's not the Athletic. If it's the Athletic who's doing this, it's a different ballgame because what are they going to tell the Athletic? You can't come to our games anymore. They're not going to do that. But they have power over me and they have power over you that way. Now, would they use it? I don't know. I think they might, but it's an interesting situation.
Well,
but look, I've always said, just let me preface it by just saying this, okay? I've always said that it doesn't matter who pays me. I always work for the fans. And I've made this clear everywhere. So we get a check from New York City to cover these games and all that, but I really work for everybody who listens to me. That's who I really work for, and that's who I serve, and that's who my broadcasts are geared to. And we don't hold punches. We criticize when teams need to be criticized. We take things into account, trust us. For everybody out here who's watching us, we've been yelled at a few times from the team. We've been scolded a couple of times. They weren't happy with things that we've done. Credit to the team, credit to New York City FC. They've never, threatened, to kick us off or anything like that. They've expressed displeasure with us, but it's become, and we've had back and forth. We just don't say, oh, sorry. We've explained ourselves and held our positions when that was the case. When we thought that, we had to stand on. If we make a mistake, we own up to it. I do this all the time. I always think it's good and professional that if you do make a mistake, don't, just try to defend something blindly that you've done stupidly. Admit you made a mistake, learn from it, and move on. So, credit to the team for that. And I respect them very much for that, by the way. I really, really do. We're very fortunate to do what we do and to get the leeway that we have to do what we do. Because nobody's ever told us, you've got to say this, or you got to go and take this point of view or anything like that. They leave us alone. They may not like a lot what we do sometimes. Every so often we might hear about it, especially, in one of these things that we do. But they leave us alone, and I give them a lot of credit. They respect us. They respect our craft. They respect our professionalism. And I'm very grateful for that because not everybody has that.
Okay. Let's go back to what you said. You work for the fans. So that contradicted what you said earlier at the beginning of this, that you feared for your job if you said something.
No, I said that I would do it, but I know that it would cost me my job. But I would do it.
That's not what you said.
That's what I meant.
Oh, all right. Now that's
and I said that I would do it. I said I'd do number 2. I said I would do number 2, but probably there would be pressure from the league to tell the team to go find another Spanish announcer.
So
and
here,
I said, so be it.
All right. So here's what I know that I think I would do, because first of all, we know everybody involved. If it's MLS, if you're giving the MLS example, we know everybody involved. And so I would probably go to the number 2. I might even go between 2 and 3, but then I would notify them that they did this and I saw all this stuff. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And I'm sure the answer would be, look, Glenn, we really can't have this out there. But I think they would also maybe give the opportunity to well, when it breaks, could I be the one that breaks the story? Not that I'm a big story breaker, because I'm not, but maybe you work out a little deal with them that way. So that's the way I envision I would handle it. So
also, let's remember this, 2 things, okay? Going back to the signal thing, okay? There's an antagonistic relationship between the Trump administration and the Atlantic. We don't have an antagonistic relationship with MLS or New York City. So there's major differences there. 1. 2, I've done this already. I put everything out of the line when I found out that the Chicago Fire were changing their name to Chicago FC. They were changing to Chicago City FC. They were going to change the name. Everything was done. Everything was done. I found out about it and I put it out there. Okay. And Sean Dennison from the Chicago Fire then brought, when the Fire came into Yankee Stadium, spoke to me in the tunnel at Yankee Stadium and read me the riot act. Okay, he was like Hegseth on what's the name of the journalist? So he was like that. He called me just like everything in the book, and it was. But I knew what I knew, and I knew my sources were good. I saw the pictures. I mean, there was nothing to say. I knew I was right, and I mentioned it, and I put it out there. And I know that the team was unhappy, and I know the league was unhappy. And at the end of the day, the Chicago Fire stayed the Chicago Fire. And if I had anything to do with that by doing what I did and revealing it when I did before they could make that announcement and then they shelved it, so be it. And credit to the league, aside from Sean Dennison yelling at me, nobody else said a word.
Well, maybe they didn't know.
Of course they knew. It was all over Twitter. I put it out publicly. That's how it got stopped.
Okay.
Of course they knew.
All right. Well, it's an interesting discussion, really. And what really stimulated me, we got to go, Roberto, but was listening to Michael Smirkanish on Sirius XM today. And if anybody,
you love him.
Oh, everybody listening or watching this should listen to this guy, because it's in that neutral territory. I mean, I don't think he voted for Trump, but I'm telling you what, he brings as many people on that would talk Trump talk versus the other side.
Which is where it should be. It should be in the middle, and you should have.
It really is.
I hate when you have the mouthpieces for both, and they're both just like
no. And I think it's always interesting to hear from the other side.
To me,
anyway. Yeah.
my go-to is Jon Stewart on Mondays on The Daily Show. Although the rest of the group on The Daily Show is great. Seth Meyers does a great job late night. Stephen Colbert had a brilliant one. I think it was either Monday or Tuesday. It was fantastic. So, but those are my guys.
Those guys are real neutral. Come on, man.
I'm not saying they're neutral. No. I'm not saying they're neutral. No, I'm not saying they're neutral. They're on the left for sure. But look, they criticized Biden quite a bit too for a lot of the stuff that he was doing and things that were going on with him. Jon Stewart especially.
Well, Shane is going to criticize us, our producer, if we don't get.
No, he already is. Don't read our private chat. It's very Canadian, Shane. They're very nice.
New York City at Atlanta United. New York City at Atlanta United. Mercedes-Benz. Roberto and I will be there with our broadcast partners. Ariel Hudas on the Spanish side. Matty Lawrence with me. 7:15 airtime. Matty and I 6:45 with New York City FC pregame live. Our live stream. So tune into that. But thanks for joining us tonight. There was a lot to go over, but it was an important day in soccer and journalism. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Have a good night, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.